earlier today, and you can find more in-depth coverage on ScoreNorth.com. Ian Rappaport was just tweeting some news about football and going through his daily routine, and he tweeted this: The Vikings have held active extension talks with veteran tight end Kyle Rudolph, but those broke off this morning, sources say. With Minnesota drafting tight end Irv Smith and Rudolph due $7.5 million, this development could lead to a trade elsewhere. There is interest around the NFL. We also had an Albert Breer report on draft night that the Patriots might have interest in trading for Kyle Rudolph. So now that we know the two sides have talked, the Vikings have major cap space issues, and Kyle Rudolph is one of 2 or 3 prime targets to maybe either restructure or, if not, potentially cut or trade. What do you guys think of these developments this afternoon?
Let's start with the football impact. I think that's probably the most important thing, right? I mean, if they trade him or release him, whatever the case might be, it doesn't change anything as far as the rest of the roster because you need that money just to sign the draft picks that you have. So the only change that will happen is that Kyle Rudolph is off the roster. You drafted Irv Smith out of Alabama, tight end. So you theoretically have his replacement. How much do you guys think they miss Kyle Rudolph on the football field? Because he was one of Kirk Cousins' favorite targets, was he not? I mean,
yes.
Not to great production, and he couldn't find him in the red zone for whatever reason, but he was one of Kirk Cousins' favorite targets last year. How badly do you think they miss him once footballs start being slung around this fall?
I think if you had a capable third receiver, the question or the answer to your question might not be as much. But in my mind, you don't. So you've got Thielen and Diggs, and behind that, I don't know what. Treadwell? I don't think so. Irv Smith, who we think is going to be good, but he's young, and making assumptions about that guy is dangerous. The fact that we've gotten to where we are does not surprise me because we've been having this discussion for how long now? 2+ months? Like, this is not a surprise. The only thing is, I think we all said at the time where Kyle was saying, well, they're not approaching me and stuff, we all said, no, that's not probably true. So now we are sitting here having a discussion that we thoroughly expected that we would have to have. But I guess my philosophical viewpoint as we sit here in mid-May talking about this is anybody going to go to the head coach and say, we need salary cap room, Mike. We brought Barr back, Mike. Something has to give on defense, Mike. Because if you're Kubiak, do you think that you're anxious to give up on a veteran tight end here who essentially, if you combine him with Irv Smith, it could be a pretty nice tandem? And again, I go back to the point of Kubiak got this job and is probably being paid a lot, but he has not been given what we consider necessarily right now to be a capable third receiver. So I'm a little bit frustrated today by the fact that Spielman doesn't go back to Zimmer at this point and say, Mike, something does have to give, but it's going to have to be from the defensive side of the football.
Well, this is the tough spot that they're in. They're set up to make a push to win this year, but they also have some major cap issues, and they just drafted Irv Smith, who might be a tight end of the future. Optimistically, he is your tight end for the next 8 years. So long term, is Kyle Rudolph part of the plans now that you've got Irv Smith? No, not necessarily. I mean,
but you shouldn't be worried about long term right now.
And that's what I was going to bring up, which is, does Kyle Rudolph help you a lot in 2019 as a 29-year-old about to be 30? He's still in some semblance of his prime and could be productive for the next 2 or 3 years. I mean, he helps you a lot. He's definitely one of your 4 most used offensive weapons. If Dalvin Cook stays healthy, Dalvin's in that mix too. I mean, it's some combination of Diggs, Thielen, Cook, and Kyle Rudolph as your 4 most prominently featured offensive weapons. If you wind up trading, if you cut him, you just get cap relief. So if you trade him, and I'm going to guess they're not just going to outright cut, like they're either going to trade him or there's other guys we can talk about throughout the rest of this hour. If they trade him, you're trading him most likely for a draft pick that you don't get to use until 2020. And so you're just getting rid of one of your most prominent offensive players in a year that you're trying to win now and bolster Kirk Cousins.
But
right?
Somebody who was going to help you win now was going to be sacrificed. What? I mean, you don't really have a choice at this point, do you?
Yeah, unless there's some creative trade to trade an established player for another established player, and that established player comes back and it's less of a cap hit. But that's getting really tricky and creative
And you almost never see stuff like that in the NFL. So it seems to me, again, we don't have full access to the Vikings books, nor do we have the expertise of their salary cap experts who've been very good. But
we did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
That's true.
And
But
we might know.
It seems to our semi-educated eyes that the only place to free up money right now is either Rudolph via trade or releasing him, Xavier Rhodes via trade, or Trey Waynes via trade. I think those seem to be the only three options at this point. So is Rudolph the best option? Is the question you have to ask yourself if you're the Vikings.
Man, because they went so all in on offense in the draft, I would think losing one of your defensive pieces with a defensive-minded coach is very problematic.
Especially when Holton Hill just got suspended for a quarter of the season.
Yeah, but if you lose Kyle Rudolph for draft picks, and now it's, hey, Irv Smith, you're no longer like a 2 or 3 years down the road guy. You're going to be targeted 85 times and need to produce.
And the danger there is going to Kirk and saying, okay, Kirk, make this work. Everything that they're trying to do is about basically going to Kirk and saying, here is your pre-packaged players, right? So you're as sure as you possibly can be that Kirk's going to be put in a position to succeed. But now at tight end, you're going to say, make this rookie work. And he might work. You don't know. But he might not. And the intricacies of playing that position as a first-year player in this league with not just routes, but blocking and things like that, it's a big ask. And listen, it's pretty clear right now that at some point in time, Kyle and his people realize that, right? And are basically saying, you know what? We're probably going to be paid too much. But guess what we don't have to do? We don't have to give in here. And my guess is that the Vikings are saying, here's a restructured Viking-friendly deal. We'll push some, we'll probably put a certain amount of small guarantees in. And Kyle's saying, okay, but the trade-off here is if I don't take this, I get paid a lot.
Yeah.
One more year here, and then I'm gone. So the Vikings have now put themselves in a position where I don't see that they have a lot of leverage with Kyle here, at least if this had come on draft night or before. Heck, then you might get a third-round pick or something.
They would only have leverage if
but
they
now
were.
What is it?
I don't know what it would be. But they're, you mean their leverage or
no? But I'm saying, but now if they pull the trigger on this move, what do they have to go to Kyle with and say you really should take this?
The only leverage they would have is, if it's even leverage, is the willingness to flat out cut him, right? But they're not. There's no way you would just cut a guy who's still. He's probably still a top 8 to 10 tight end in the NFL.
And
now
he'll get gobbled
out.
up and probably paid.
Yeah. So it's really, we did just get an inside scoop here. I hope this is an inside scoop from loyal listener and follower on Twitter, JP. He tweets into the show. Mm-hmm. He tweets into @Ramie is tweeting, @Jay Zolgad, and @Phil Mackey.
Does this qualify as reckless?
I mean, it's probably on brand.
Reckless speculation.
He says everyone in the organization or close to it knows who the third wide receiver is, and that's Chad Beebe. I think the coaches and players have made that pretty clear. Everyone I know inside the Vikings has said that since last year. I like me some Chad Beebe. I love me some Chad Beebe. I was all over the Chad Beebe bandwagon.
Do you guys feel comfortable with that?
That dude caught 4 passes in 2018.
He's also consistently hurt.
So I'm all aboard the Chad Beebe bandwagon, but if your grand plan going into the season is we can lose Kyle Rudolph because we have Chad Beebe as a third option.
Right now, there's not a receiver in the league who caught 4 passes last year who the entire franchise is like, that's our guy. That's our guy. That receiver does not exist in the NFL. He's not. That's not a thing.
4 could be 40. You never know.
So it's a really interesting, precarious situation here, but I got to think with how great Rob Brzezinski has been handling and managing the salary cap. These little situations pop up every once in a while. And he has a way, historically, of smoothing it out between player and agent and getting what he and the Vikings want out of it. So I know it sounds bad because, again, if you're just joining us or you've been working on a Friday, Ian Rappaport reporting that the Vikings and Kyle Rudolph contract talks have broken down, and the likelihood of a trade is more and more likely here at this point. But I got to think there's still a good chance this ends with Kyle Rudolph accepting a restructured contract and the Vikings not trading any of the aforementioned players we've been talking about, because that's what always happens with Rob Brzezinski.
Who floated this becomes my next question too. Did this get floated by the Vikings side or by Kyle's side? Because that could sort of color where this might be going and how far down the road to being actually broken down, as opposed to a negotiating ploy this actually is.
Well, who has the most reason to float it?
That's what I was just going to say. Who has more to gain by doing this? I think it's probably the Vikings.
Maybe. Although if Kyle thinks he's going to be let go, or if his people do, this could be a potential warning shot to teams that he's going to be available now. This is just, but we have had, it's funny to go back now and think about the denials and things when we've been talking about this for 2 months and you knew this was coming. Like you knew that at some point in time when you don't have enough to sign your draft picks,
Yeah.
something's got to give, and it's got to be fairly significant.
I have a dumb question. How often, what are the rules? How long can you trade a draft pick? Like a player you drafted a week and a half ago?
Oh, you know, I don't know.
Because
I don't think I've ever seen it done.
Because I don't remember it being done. And I don't know because I know in the NBA, there's a certain window.
Yes.
And so I wonder, this is the problem. If you trade him for a draft pick now, the first draft pick you could get is next season, and now you've wasted a season with Kirk Cousins. I just don't think that's a viable solution to trade a Xavier Rhodes or a Kyle Rudolph or just any established player for a draft pick, because now that the draft is over, you're putting chips on the 2020 table, and I don't like that with this current makeup.
Right.
So I wonder how much they tried to shop him before the 2019 draft 2 weeks ago in hopes of at least getting something. If it was a second-round pick or a third-round pick, it was something you could turn into a weapon or something of substance for 2019, and they just came up empty.
Do you guys think that this also might have taken so long to get to where things stand right now because potentially there's some internal disagreement with this team from the head coach and Kubiak and Spielman, and what I brought up, which is there's got to be a feeling in that building that we can't be super serving defense all the time, and it comes off that way a lot, that this might have taken so long to play out. Because if you're Kubiak, you don't want this. Like, there's no good. Even if you say Kyle is not Zach Ertz or Travis Kelce, he's still a very serviceable, decent part of what you could do with Cousins offensively. Do you guys
Owen
think
Daniels put up numbers in Gary Kubiak's offense?
So
Kyle Rudolph could.
Do you think that this also might have taken so long to play out and stems from internal conflict about which direction they are going to go?
I mean, you got to think, like you said, Gary Kubiak would voice his displeasure with this. I don't know that this is causing a rift within the Vikings organization, but you would think that, like you said, there's nothing to gain from letting Kyle Rudolph go. Not from his perspective. He was brought in here to improve this offense. The offense does not get better by letting Kyle Rudolph go. It may be the sacrifice that you have to make as an organization just to get under the salary cap, but it does not make your offense better. I don't see how this could possibly make your offense better.
Okay, if the Vikings have to trade Kyle Rudolph for draft picks, how much does that affect your opinion of what they can do in 2019 record-wise? 651-646-8255. 651-646-8255. We've got the Twitch stream fired up today, twitch.tv/scorenorth, and you can look at Ramie's glorious locks.
Yep.
In high definition.
Posture's improving.
It's getting there. I've been doing the posture workout like 2 or 3 times a week.
Have you really?
I have.
What does that all entail?
It's a lot of weird stuff. It's weird. I sent you guys the video. Didn't I send you guys the video?
I don't think we've received this video.
No,
you told me you were doing weird stuff.
No, put it out on Twitter.
I will. I'll put it out there. I'll do it right now, actually.
Are you fully clothed during these?
I was going to say, what does not say for work?
What's fully clothed?
We're going to go to break now.